Well, welcome to the first meeting of the Law School Council for 2023. For those of you who would like to use the closed caption feature, you may do so by pressing the CC button in the ribbon on your computer. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask staff to take the roll.
Nydia Dueñez.
Here.
Susan Bakshian.
Present.
Mary Basic.
Present.
Grace Hum.
Present.
Christopher E. Daydon.
Present.
Mary Beth Moyen.
Present.
Devin Kenyon.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We welcome the members of the public who are in the audience, and we welcome you to make public comments. Public comment typically occurs at the beginning of the meeting, and members of the public that wish to submit written comments may email them to lsc@calbar.ca.gov. The deadline to sign up and submit written comments is 24 hours before the meeting, and there's more information on our State Bar website. Public comment typically occurs at the beginning, and we can go ahead and get started. For those who are attending via computer, you can raise your hand by choosing the raise hand button. And for those on a phone, you can press *9. You'll be recognized for 2 minutes to give your comment. And if you are attending via computer, you'll be able to see a timer on the screen. If you have a longer public comment, you are welcome to submit it in writing to the email on the agenda. For those who submit written public comment to the email listed on the agenda, I don't believe we received any. So is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. So now I'll ask staff to please recognize any members of the public.
At this time, there are no members of the public wishing to make public comment.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. So now we'll move on to the first item, which is the approval of the August 17th, 2022 Law School Council public meeting minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? Not seeing any requests for changes. Do we have a motion to accept?
So moved.
So moved. Thank you. A second?
Second.
Second. Okay. May we please call a roll vote?
Susan Bakshian.
Approve.
Mary Basic.
Abstain.
Grace Hum.
Approve.
Christopher E. Daydon.
Abstain.
Mary Beth Moylan.
Approve.
Devin Kenyon.
Approve.
Nydia Dueñez.
Approved.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to the chair's report. I'd like to welcome our new member, Mary Basic, from UC Irvine College of Law. I'd also like to welcome our returning member, Mary Beth Moylan, who was completing an interim term last year and was appointed to a full term. So welcome to Mary Beth. We also wish Grace Hum well, as this is her last meeting before she transitions to her new role. We wish you the best in that, Grace. And if it's okay with everyone, I'd like to take a moment here so that we can all briefly introduce ourselves and welcome our new members. So I'll go ahead and get started, and then we'll just kind of move from there. So I'm Nydia Dueñez, and I'm the Dean of Students and Diversity Affairs at Southwestern Law School. And I'm also the chair for the Law School Council this year. So welcome to everyone, and thank you for being here with us. I'll go ahead and popcorn over to Susan.
Thank you. I'm Susan Bakshian. I think I know all of you. I'm at Loyola Law School where I've been forever, and I direct the bar programs. I am also the hybrid evening advisor and lots of other things, and I teach lots of other things. I used to do academic success. I've done bar review and bar prep forever. So it's very nice to see everyone. And and I'm former, I've been on the law school council also for a while, and I'm former chair.
Thank you. Would like to go next? Mary Beth, I think I saw you unmute.
Sure, I'll go next. I'm Mary Beth Moylan. I'm the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs at McGeorge School of Law, part of University of the Pacific in Sacramento. And I teach civil procedure, election law, and classes in the lawyering skills area. I was the director originally of our Global Lawyering Skills program. And that's about all.
Thank you.
Nidhi, I can go next. Being from Davis, right next to Sacramento, Mary Beth. My name is Chris Edidon. I'm at UC Davis Law, Assistant Dean for Academic Success. And so I do 1L all the way through our grads, 1L, 2L, 3L, and bar. And yeah, we're getting ready for those results tomorrow, but great to be here.
Thank you, Chris.
I'll go next. I'm Grace Hum. I am the Dean of Students at UC Law San Francisco, formerly UC Hastings. I'll be in this position for another few weeks. I've been in legal education, though, for 23 years, teaching legal writing for a long time and a bunch of other things. And I've been in student services for the last 8 years. I'm moving on to be the Assistant Circuit Executive for Court Operations, Policy, and Legal Affairs at the Office of Circuit Executive for the Ninth Circuit. So change in my career, but I am glad to still be state barred because that was required for this job. I'll just popcorn it over to Devin.
Thank you, and congratulations on your new job. That's exciting. I actually had then Professor Hum many years ago when we were both much younger. So I'm Devin Kenyon. I'm a faculty member at Santa Clara University School of Law, where I serve as the director of our Office of Academic and Bar Success, doing all the things that comes with. And I teach property and community property. And I'm not entirely sure who needs to go next. So whoever that person is, feel popcorned.
I think that's all of us that have gone now. That's correct. Okay, wonderful. So now we will move on to the next part of our agenda, which is the staff reports.
Thank you. So I'm Natalie Leonard. I'm the principal program analyst working with the law schools in California and around our country. And I wanted to recognize Susan Bakshian and also our director, Audrey Ching, to talk a little bit about a report from the Blue Ribbon Commission on the future of the bar exam. The public comment period closed and the Blue Ribbon Commission met to review that comment and determine whether it would alter its final report and what the next steps are. So we're lucky right here on the Law School Council to have a member of that commission and Audrey as our coordinator. So I'll turn it over to them to give a report and receive your questions.
Thank you, Natalie. I think if you want, I can give you the 2-minute summary, and then Audrey and I can field questions because she's going to have to answer all the technical ones and I'll answer all of the commission conversation related ones. And probably between the two of us, we can do it all. But really, this has been about a 1.5-year long journey, and it is finally coming to a close. To give you the quick overview, let me start by saying the state bar staff did an absolutely amazing job of putting together a tremendously detailed report. So if you are a bar prep person and you do want the glorious details, it's very important not to hit print. It is about 2 inches thick. But the full report and all of the appendices could answer any question you have in a lot more detail, and it's all there and it's beautifully done. So thank you to the staff for a beautiful report and appendix with all the detail. And if you are a person who follows this area closely, I would commend you at least the executive summary up front. It's very helpful. I will spare you all of that because lots of you know a lot of that background. But let me just give you a couple of quick highlights from our last commission meeting, which was just recently on April 26th. The state bar at that time, and when public comment closed, had received over 1,400 public comments from over 867 individuals. All of that is been assessed, and the bar did, and the commission did adopt a couple of minor revisions to the report in that final meeting to clarify some things that repetitively came up in the state bar in the public comment. So in response to that public comment, we voted on a few minor clarifications, and once those are finalized and done, the report will then go to the Board of Trustees and the California Supreme Court for consideration. Again, the commission's role here is to make recommendations. So what we have done is make those recommendations, then the Board of Trustees and the California Supreme Court will decide which, if any, to adopt or others that they may wish to adopt or consider. But the report itself has a lot of detail in it. A couple of highlights. We did make a minor revision on the reciprocity issue to clarify. The commission made only a very small revision there because reciprocity was not a huge part of this commission's work, but we did recommend that the California Supreme Court reconsider allowing out-of-state attorneys to apply to the California bar without sitting for the exam. So that was done on reciprocity. In response to public comment, we made some clarification that while the commission is recommending a California specific exam, not to adopt the UBE, that does not mean we would only test California law. I don't think anybody here thought we were ever recommending that, but in the public comment, that theme did present itself a little bit. And so we did clarify that, of course, it means federal common law and the usual basics as well, but it means a California directed, created, written exam, it means basically a rejection of the UBE. So we clarified that it would be testing federal law, not just California only. We also added professional responsibility to one of the topics that will be tested. The commission has made a recommendation to change the subject matters tested on the California State Bar. And specifically, the State Bar, the commission recommended that the State Bar test the topics from the CAPA evaluations and reporting that was done recently, fairly recently, not, I gotta quit calling it recent. It seems recent to me, but the CAPA report is now a couple of years old. So it was to test the CAPA topics, and now we are going to add to that professional responsibility. And for those of you who aren't familiar, that list includes civil procedure, constitutional law, contracts, criminal law and procedure, evidence, real property, and torts. We will be adding professional responsibility to that CAPA list, and we will be adding administrative law. Administrative law was on the list of CAPA topics, and the commission did agree to suggest that the State Bar consider that adoption. So the topics would change to basically what a lot of us are familiar with as the core topics from CAPA, plus administrative law, plus professional responsibility. Again, should the court and the Board of Trustees decide to make any change at all. That's again just the commission's recommendation to make that subject matter change. It would be a removal of trusts and wills, business associations, and community property. So that has been clarified in the report. And again, much more detail on all of these topics in the report itself, or at least the executive summary if you're just interested in that. And last but not least, and perhaps most important to many of us here, is a recommendation by the commission that the emphasis on the California bar exam move to one that is more designed to test skills of an entry-level attorney and to decrease the reliance on memorization and rote recall of memorized black letter law. So again, are the commission's goals and the commission's charge was not to actually implement or do any of these things. It was to evaluate and make recommendations. And so those are the recommendations that we made. And if you're interested in a lot of the details, why we made some and rejected others, that information is included in the full report, and including all of the appendix, where you can see all of the expert information we saw from jurisdictions across the United States and including Canada as well. Now, you will notice, if you've been following any of the meetings, you can watch the meetings, by the way. The recordings are preserved online at the State Bar website. There were several final remarks at the last meeting on April 26th, dissenting to the Blue Ribbon Commission, full disclosure, myself included in that dissent, for a failure of the commission to recommend a non-exam alternative or an exam alternative of some kind. And that you can check in the executive summary and see the motions that were put forward. They were very close votes. The commission was sharply divided, but was unable to make a recommendation that the Supreme Court explore exam alternatives, though there is a full discussion and dissent of those materials and why a good portion of the commission did believe that should be pursued. And so at this point, the bar is tinkering with those little revisions and dissents and everything. It has to be turned in by, I believe it's tomorrow, May 5th. And Audrey will be happy to know I have dissented and am done, so I will not be sending another. But we are close to wrapping up that final report. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the process, the recommendations. I see Natalie, I've forgotten something already.
Oh, no, not at all. Actually, it's just more a comment. Sometimes people ask us about the public comment experience and what it's like for the members on the team. And here you were in a situation where you received a significant amount of public comment. What was that like? How did you receive it? And how did it inform the committee's discussion?
I read the public comments as they came in, because I found it very helpful that the State Bar would send them to the commission members, usually the day before the meetings. And I kept up with it on a every meeting basis to avoid it becoming a mountain. Though the report that I showed you that's 2 inches thick is a fraction of the amount of material that was actually submitted and considered, which is in part why the commission was a 1.5-year long journey. There was a lot of information submitted. And the interesting part about public comment is that it comes from a variety of individuals and organizations. So you get information that has such a wide breadth and is very helpful. And of course, at the very end, the full public comment on the report was rather overwhelming, though a fair amount of it was folks sort of doubling down on something they had submitted before. So it was a little bit quicker to go through it if you knew you had already read that previously. But I also found even what I would consider to be the public comments that were sort of beyond our scope. We got a lot of public comment about the bar exam in general, about bar exam testing and frustrations in general, something I think this group knows a lot about. And I found it helpful to read and review those things to confirm that that is not just my personal experience, but one that many share. And I also found that helpful, even though it did go a bit beyond our commission's charge and was not directly relevant sometimes to our purposes. It was helpful to inform that broader discussion. But I really would be remiss if I did not say thank you to Audrey and the State Bar staff, because that 1,400 final public comments that came in from 867 individuals was put into a very organized dashboard that let us sort and go through it much more quickly.
Thank you. So that's
Audrey, the one
question.
thing I didn't have, Audrey, was the date that's planned to release the edited final report.
Right, so thank you. So Friday, tomorrow, yeah, is the day when all the commissioners and we've been getting some more revisions on dissents and people signing on to other dissents, which will help staff put together the final report. So if you're looking to not print but read the report, you might wait until the Board of Trustees meeting on May 18th, because staff will have added in all the additional information from the April 26th meeting, all the revised dissents and other commissioners signing on to dissent. So it will just be a little more updated. Again, the changes weren't so material at the last meeting, but it will be the finalized version for the Board of Trustees meeting on the 18th. So you can wait a little to read that if you want to. And then, yeah, the Board of Trustees will forward that, assumedly, to the Supreme Court, and we'll see what recommendations come back from all the hard work of the commission. Yeah, over a year and a half and 19 different meetings. So it was a lot of fun. I mean it too. It was.
I will say this, I've worked in bar prep for this starting fall will be 30 years. And the one thing I found surprising about the commission's work is that while I did know a great deal of what we covered, I did not know everything.
I learned a lot about the Canadian licensure process. So if anyone has any questions about being called to the bar in Canada, you can ask me offline.
And I'll just reiterate, well, tomorrow is the last day for commission members to make any sort of final dissents or edits, or if you are interested in what motions we approved and what they exactly say, that information is not going to change, and the subject matter information and a lot of those details and appendix information is ready if you want to look at it. But thank you for the 18th date. I knew the Board of Trustees meeting was soon.
Yeah, very soon.
So I believe that's all on that item. So if we will move on next to the admission rules and fees segment.
Sure. Yeah, so I'll ask Viviana to recognize Andrew Conover from our finance team to join us, and also Audrey Ching. Every so often, we review our fee structure to make sure that we have adequate funds to cover the costs of the regulation that we are doing. We last did this in 2017 and 2018, going through this process again, and we're lucky to have Andrew Conover here, who was part of the prior review and also this one as well, and Audrey, who's been deeply involved in this process. They'll talk about how they came to these recommendations, what they are, where the public comment is, and how you can access it. So I'd like to welcome both Andrew and Audrey.
Thank you, Natalie. I'll just give a brief overview. As Natalie mentioned, my name is Andrew Conover, and I was originally a part of a new group that was created in 2016 called the Office of Research and Institutional Accountability, quite the mouthful. And one of our very first projects was a fee study to look at all the state bar programs and the fees that were charged. We began that review in 2017. And for the admission area, we looked at every program except for the exams and moral character, only because they had just had a 5% fee increase the year before and had been looked at internally by the Office of Admission. So I'm currently working with the Office of Finance now. We're on a 5-year cycle. This is a standard review. We start roughly every 5 years. And I'm working with finance, applying the same parameters and methods that we developed back in 2017. And simply put, what we're doing is trying to determine whether or not the fees that were generated by the participation in the various programs are enough to cover the cost of providing the services. That essentially is it. And when we talk about program costs, we're looking at salary benefits, external costs such as outside contractor, software, supply cost, and site expenses, as well as the admissions portion of indirect costs, which represents the building they're in and the services they receive from finance and HR and IT and those sort of costs that are shared across the board. So we've been working for a little over a year on this study, the second round of study, including admissions. And we've developed 2 options that are posted out for public comment that I believe closes May 5th. May 15th is the closing date for those. And those 2 options basically are split into 2 basic groups. The first option is sort of looking at what would it cost at the current service levels to break even, to do what we're doing today what would we need to charge to pay for those services? And the second option is a more reduced sort of less than break even. It's more modest, but it may result in a service level adjustments or curtailments in the future.
Thanks, Andrew. That was a lot of what I was going to say, but I will circle back to something you said, which is that moral character and the bar exam fees have not increased since 2016. And those are the largest programs, the most applicants, the most expense of anything that we do in admissions. So those have not increased since that 5% increase in 2016. So if you go to the website, we have a dedicated microsite about the fee proposal, and our communications team have broken the fees down sort of to what affects folks in law school and studying for exams, be it the bar exam or the first year exam, what fees affect attorneys who are in different special admissions programs, and then law school regulation, which are the fees that we assess for our Cal accredited and registered schools. So they're kind of nicely broken out on the web page. Something just to note about the law study and exams kind of tab when you see it is that we are looking at continuing to charge attorneys who take the bar exam more than what we would charge folks who are non-attorneys, and maybe even I'm not thinking directly of the percentage more in the two options, but definitely charging the attorneys who take the exam and moral character fees more.
Audrey, would you want to show the page at all?
Sure, yeah, let me show the page. It's a great page. It really has a lot laid out there. So maybe this is better than me describing a web page to everyone. So you see the comment period closes on May 15th. And this is what I was talking about. Here's what Andrew was saying. There's a break-even cost and then something more modest, but may lead to us coming back sooner than later on more increases or significantly cutting the services that we provide in admissions. So law study and exams, if you click through to that, you can see when were these fees last increased. Like I said, a lot of the ones related to moral character and exams have not increased since 2016. And then option 1 and option 2, how much we're proposing them to increase. And then you can see the attorney application fee increasing at a different rate than the ones for the law students or non-attorneys. And then, you can click through to things like special admissions. So Pro Hoc Vice, we only charge $50 currently for something that we think we might be able to propose a larger increase in some of these other areas for licensed attorneys who provide legal services on ad hoc basis or on different kinds of special admissions basis in California.
And then just to confirm, the public comment period is open through May 15,
May
and they
15th
would submit.
at 11:59 p.m.
Okay, for those last minute commenters.
We always get them. We get them every time.
And it looks like there are a couple of questions from Mary Beth Moylan.
Thanks. So, and I'm sorry if I missed this, when would these increases take effect?
That's a good question. I guess, Andrew, would be for next year.
Yeah, it's assuming that whatever the board decides at the July meeting would be in time to be included for next year.
For the February bar. I'm thinking of the law student, the cycle, and also for loans. So a lot of our students obviously take living expenses and take bar expenses loans, and they need to sort of apply for those going into the academic year. So I think it would be, I don't know if it would be too late to find out in July. That just, it's substantial, right? They have to take their bar prep class too, and then $1,500 versus $900, and then I think it said for the moral character it was $1,000 instead of whatever it had been. So that would be something that people would probably need to plan for.
Susan?
Thank you. I just want to pass along my wholehearted support for increasing the fees on attorneys, especially something like Pro Hoc Vice, because that passes through to a client who can afford lawyers in 2 different states. And I feel like those folks could maybe bear a little more of the burden here, and that would be fair and appropriate. That said, I'm very curious about the option for the less increase, but we might have to reduce services. It doesn't seem to me that there are any services the State Bar provides in admissions that could be reduced. Could you give us an idea what would go away?
I think if we cut operational expenses, things would take a lot longer to process, right? So that would be what my initial thought would be, is if we have to cut back operationally, things would take longer. Something we're looking at anyway, because we have to, right? We can't only look at fee increases, is looking at cutting the costs of the bar exam. So we are doing a lot behind the scenes as staff right now to look at using a community college instead of a hotel for the testing accommodation rooms. And those things are difficult sometimes because we have an exam in February where, not all some of those spaces for classrooms are used for classrooms, right? So we're looking at what we can do for 24 already that's going to cut costs, because the increases, we need to do more already. But yeah, depending on what comes out of the fee proposal, if we have to cut back on operational expenses even more, then yeah, our services will take longer to process. Devin?
I have some discomfort with this proposal, mostly because I'm the person at my law school who gets to hear the rage that I actually wish they would direct towards you all about the fees. The sort of one thing I sort of brought up at a previous meeting is needs to be a lot more clarity about what the law student just registration fee goes to. When I've asked that before, the response verbatim was, it goes to the services we provide to law students, which there are none that I've ever been able to identify, other than they now have an account on a website where the rest of their stuff lives. So, the best thing the bar could do is actually really articulate what that fee is for. And if it is just to pay for the technology needs to be a lot better for students, because that fee is like offensive for most of our students that they're paying for that when they start in their first year. The other sort of fee issue I have is around and I've already had students ask me, which is the increase to register for the bar exam itself doesn't sort of address the separate laptop fee, which also is something that causes rage, to say the least. And so the proposal would be more palatable if the bar was transparent that there's also a separate fee on top of that, or if there was actually sort of a combination of those fees, because I actually feel like that is, it's really hard to explain that to students in a way that makes any rational sense for them. I'm sort of, I've worked in both the public sector and the private nonprofit sector. I get that the costs for you all are increasing a lot, but I don't know that, particularly for students, they see that they get any value in the current fees they are paying, and they will feel even more stung by an increase in fees.
Thank you. And it's been open. We have received a lot of comment already, and sent out to 80,000 plus folks from the database the same information. I think I sent to everyone here, all the law schools, about how to submit comment, and we want the feedback. So we're getting all that, perhaps some of it rage-filled responses back from the students and your alumni that we've sent that information to. Nydia or Christopher first? I'm not sure. Nydia.
Okay, sure, I can go. I just had a question about how or if the state bar's commitment to access and diversity was considered at all in terms of the fees. Some of them, for option 1 versus option 2. Option 1, it's quite substantial, like the difference for some of these very essential applications that students will have to file in. And what one of our colleagues had already mentioned, just the planning and preparation that a third-year law student who's relying on perhaps federal financial aid or scholarships in terms of like just kind of parsing out those funds to hopefully carry over through bar. Was that, commitment, that mission, a part of this discussion of funds and the impact that it may have on diversifying the profession and access to the profession?
So the fee proposal to date was not, we didn't have meetings with our access and inclusion with COAF committee. Yeah, right. What's the name of the access and inclusion committee? What we did meet with several times is the committee of bar examiners, and in public meetings about the fee proposal, several times about what we were coming up with and their recommendations. And that's why, if you look at the option one, for like the first year exam, when we talk about access to the profession, that kind of increase might be something, and for option one, that just wouldn't seem as tenable to anyone in the public. And that's why we also have this option two that folks can weigh in on. And we'll see, when we present to the board, it's not like the board has to definitely say all of option one or all of option two. We can look at some kind of hybrid for different kinds of parts of the fees where we wouldn't want to financially preclude someone who might be needing to take the first year exam more than once, for example. Christopher?
Yeah, I think my concerns were kind of following up on what Nidia said too. If you add in the laptop fee under option one, it's over $1,000 to take the bar exam each time. I guess some questions would be, is it possible to have a sliding scale, a fee waiver, reduced costs for repeaters at least? Because I know with our law school, what we can do if you're a 3L is we can give you additional loans to cover the cost of the $1,000 registration. But after you graduate, if you do not pass, we don't have the opportunity we're not able to loan them another $1,000 every time they take it. So would there be something, I know like with paying our state bar dues, there is an income-based component where you can ask for a reduced fee. Could we do something similar in terms of taking the bar for our students who are not employed, not able to use law school resources? So just want to toss that out there.
What I would toss back to you is that I think you should submit public comment to that effect. That is not how the fee proposal structure is in front of you, but that is something that you definitely could mention in your own public comment, which would be appreciated.
Great. Thanks, Audrey.
Mary Basic.
Yeah, the comment I have is very similar to what others have said. I'm really concerned about the impact this is going to have on the students that we are most concerned about, including and having access to the profession. And so I was thinking along the same, I think that Christopher had better ideas than I did, but some sort of, I don't know, some sort of a fee structure that would reduce this for those that have a need base. And that's not everybody, but it certainly is the folks we're concerned about. And I don't know if it's like, when the rest of us do our bar dues, can we check a little box that goes to that fund or something like that, that creates a pool of money? I understand needing to cover costs. And of course, it's expensive to do all this stuff. But I think maybe if we use our thinking caps, we could come up with something that would make it a little easier for the students we're most concerned about advocating for.
Thank you. That's a good idea. I like the idea of you submitting something in public comment about licensed attorneys contributing to a fund. I think that's a great idea.
Any further discussion on that? Thank you, everyone. Next, we'll move on to the report on how to apply to serve on the Law School Council.
Thank you. So of course, all of you have successfully applied to serve on the Law School Council, and thank you for your service. It is the time of year when we also invite new applications. So as for you here on the commission at this time, if you are interested in chairing the commission next year, we encourage you to send a statement of interest to lawschoolregulation@calbar.ca.gov, and I'll follow up with an email after this meeting. And then for those who are thinking about serving on the Law School Council in the future, I wanted to just summarize the opportunity and how to apply, because the application period is open through the 30th of June. And this period is later than some of the other state bar appointments. So if you've been looking at others, you might think, wait a minute, hasn't it closed? and it has not. A reason being, the law school council appointments are made by the new chair and vice chair of the Committee of Bar Examiners each year. They are appointed in the summer. So we collect the applications through the end of June. We have them ready for that new chair and vice chair when they begin their leadership role of the Committee of Bar Examiners. And this year we have a new application process. So if you go to the Law School Council page, at the top of the page, you'll see a link to that online application. And so if members of the public are watching and they've applied in the past, this year the application is different. We would encourage you to reapply, but please do use that online application. And then this way, everything will be sent in a similar format for everyone. It will make it much more efficient for us to process and get back to you more quickly. And I think that we'd love to see representation from schools that haven't served on the commission in a while, as well as those who have. And for those of you who are on the commission right now, if you have anything that you would like to share that would help people decide whether this is the right opportunity for them to seek, then I think that would be really helpful.
Devin.
I just want to say, like, the getting to serve on this has been, it has been a lot of fun, actually. But I think sort of the best part is sort of, as somebody who like lives and thinks in sort of the bar from the law school world so much, it has been a nice sort of shift in my point of view around certain things. I know that sometimes that doesn't always come across, but I definitely have like really benefited from getting to hear from, particularly from bar staff who I know have to juggle lots of different competing priorities. And it's also just nice to sort of get to like put some names to faces. I think as a community, like the bar community, we all sort of know each other, but particularly during pandemic times, we've not all been around each other very much in like the last 5 or 6 years. And so it's nice to like log on and be like, oh yeah, these are the people who I see emails from and interact with all the time, and actually get to spend some time talking with. And so, I sort of reiterate that we'd love for new folks with new perspectives to join, and we appreciate the contributions.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and it's really helpful for us as staff members to, the more, we'll talk about this in a little bit when we talk about the law school meetings, but the more that we can get specific information from you about what you're thinking, what you want to know, what your students are thinking, what they want to know, even if you've possibly already told them, that really helps us to create the kind of programming that you want and that your students need. So that's very true, and we're looking forward to lots of applications, and we appreciate the applications we get every year, and we appreciate the service from all of you. So that's what I have as to that topic. And then our next topic is actually a special set topic. We'll have a greeting from our public trust liaison, but he'll be coming at 2 o'clock. So Nidia, if it's okay with you, may we proceed to the recent developments?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay, so this is the part of the meeting where we talk about things that have come up since the agenda was posted, even though that was only 10 days ago. Sometimes things happen in the meantime. And of course, the first of these is a reminder that tomorrow, the February bar exam results will be released to bar exam takers. They've received instructions about how to access their results when they are released at 6 o'clock tomorrow, and then they'll be released to the larger public on Sunday, and they'll be US mailed to the law schools on Monday. We know that schools would probably submit public comment if it were opened regarding the way that they are distributed right now via mail. We do have an interest in brainstorming ways to deliver those online. We look at it in the constellation of all of the things that we are talking about, having just figured the fee proposals, et cetera. But for this time, they are going to continue to be distributed via US mail. And we will get them out to you as quickly as we can. We do actually directly bring them to the post office on Monday morning to try to get you the fastest possible result that we can. So that's coming up with the bar results. And next one, thinking ahead to the next bar exam, just a reminder for your graduates who are registering for the July 2023 bar exam. They do have the opportunity to take the bar strategies and stories program. It does not replace a bar prep program, but rather it's a complementary program that's designed to help place the students in a productive mindset. the research team that offers the program could not make it available for the February exam due to unforeseen circumstances, but we're so glad that it's back. And if your graduates have not signed up when they registered for the bar, they can sign up from a custom email that they receive. And for the bar prep folks here in the audience and outside attending, watching the meeting, just a reminder that this program can be helpful at any time, but it's especially helpful if they take it as soon as they receive it in order to have those benefits that will carry all the way through their study period. It takes less than 2 hours to complete. And so if you do have graduates that are taking advantage of this free program, encourage them to do it right away. We heard a couple of examples from some schools that do any sort of online or community prep, that they actually place some time in the program to say, hey, you know, during the morning, this is the time when we're going to do that. I see a question from Susan.
Thank you, Natalie. I'll just add a plug for Strategies and Stories. It's short, it's 45 minutes. And at several law school council meetings and other meetings, I've seen the results, and it's astonishing what it does to pass rate. So I'm sure you guys all already know, but for anyone who doesn't, it's definitely worth pursuing. The only question I had about bar results, I understand they still got to be mailed. I'm one who would, of course, love anything else, including carrier pigeon. But if we're going to have to mail them, is there any possibility of getting them mailed to more than one person at the law school? Because mailing stuff to my dean is the kiss of death for like it getting seen soon.
Well, that could be something that we could look at. Right now in our database, we keep the dean and the registrar, and then we mail consistently so we know who has received it, and then the law school can choose its own privacy policy regarding that. We can think about in the pot of brainstorming ideas, priority would be some sort of electronic delivery, but if not, maybe there's a way that we can adjust what we're doing to make it easier. So, so that could be something we could think about.
Thank you. I realize it's complicated and sensitive.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And we know, but we also understand that it's important. And so we definitely do want to keep it top of mind. Okay, next topic, provisional licensure program. Just a reminder that there's been an extension of some of the deadlines related to the provisional licensure program. In particular, those graduates from 2020 that were eligible to participate in the program can sign up to apply through May 31st, and they'll have additional time to participate in the program before they must pass a bar exam to continue practicing. The new material.
Natalie.
Oh, please adjust.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get your attention. Those folks who were in the program by December 31st, 2022 have to have all the requirements met except for bar pass by the end of this month. So there is no window for 2020 graduates to apply for the program.
Oh, Audrey, thank you. And I should have had open the very helpful provisional licensure page, which does lay out the dates and has an FAQ to discuss that. So thanks, I appreciate that. Okay. So those are the recent announcements that we have. Are there any further questions about those?
I actually did have a question, Natalie, concerning the item, which was the bar exam strategies and stories. I'm a little less familiar with that resource, so I apologize, but if you're able to just kind of provide a really brief overview of kind of what that entails and the commitment by the student or applicant who applies to participate in that.
Sure, yeah, and I think for us too, when we skip a cycle as we were required to do in February, for the students, they may not have heard about it, and so it's nice to get a chance to talk about it again. So this is a program that was created by a consortium of academic researchers, and it's right now housed out of Indiana University in an accelerator as part of that school. The idea behind the program is that it was developed in concert with not only law professors, but also psychology professors, and it focuses on developing a productive mindset while studying. So the students can sign up at the time that they take the bar exam or through a customized link. And because it is an extension of a study, that's why they sign up in that special way. There is no charge. And then there are a series of videos, writing assignments, and other elements that are designed to help the students maintain a productive mindset while they are studying. I think technically the program is set up to take about 45 minutes. I generally give a longer period of time so that they know it'll be completed in that time period.
Is that 45 minutes to complete the entire program?
Yes.
Okay.
And it includes things like videos from prior takers of the bar exam, examples of their experience, a letter to future bar takers giving advice based on what the students have learned, things like that.
Great.
Susan, you may have something to add.
Just to add that most of us who teach mindset in our bar prep classes and ASP classes, it is very compatible with what you're doing. It is a mindset program. And for some reason, because it has the official state bar sort of link and stamp of approval, even those who have been a little resistant to mindset are a little more willing. Also, those who maybe were never in ASP but are struggling a lot with the anxiety of the bar find it very helpful. And the bar pass increase is not little, it is monstrous. And I'm not going to give a number because I'm going to give the wrong one, but it was big enough that I have never forgotten to push this to a group ever.
And Susan, when you say that increase, is that because you kept data on your students, or do you mean
No, it was the data from the researchers overall, and it stopped my heart. In fact, I was at a meeting, heard the number and said, that has to be wrong. And then I heard it at a second meeting, and then I heard it at a third meeting, and then I saw it on a slide, and it's not wrong. It's really substantial. And I think it just goes to show the power of mindset that we've all known for a long time makes a huge difference, that when you push it to the students at the right time with a little bit of officialness behind it, and the research going on behind it is tremendous and shows it to be a huge boost in pass rate. I encourage it. And don't be discouraged by, some of my students were discouraged by that there's writing to do. It's sort of journal or reflective kind of stuff, and you can skip it. The program itself is very mindset oriented, story oriented. It's fabulous. I tell my students in my bar pass class, if you don't read my book, that's fine. But if you don't sign up for strategies and stories, you made a huge mistake.
And Nydia, on the website, you can find information about it. And it also will link to some of those reports Susan is referring to by the researchers. There's one from the latest one is from 2021, saying that total bar scores increased by approximately 24 points after controlling for LSAT, GPA, and cohort effects. So that's one of the top takeaways from their research. And you can read it on the website.
Thank you. Mary Beth?
Can you share the link with us to where it is on the website? And also, is the only way for them to get the customized link to sign up through the email that they received from the state bar? In other words, like, can our bar support person push this link out to the students who are enrolled in our bar classes, or they can only individually get it if they've signed up for the bar already?
It's customized to the person. Sorry, Natalie.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. And so that's why we could really use your help. Part of this is that because it is a research project, eventually, if this is rolled out on a permanent basis, I'm sure there will be a different way to access it at that point. But we certainly didn't want to wait for that period, especially with the results that we have ended up seeing from the program. So it is a little bit more challenging that everyone's link is unique. So even if I receive a link to sign up and I sign up, Audrey needs to receive her own link. And we understand it as email, which may be less popular with some of the students today. And so that's where we could use your help, really on two levels. First of all, helping them understand what it is and that it complements their bar prep. And then second of all, looking for that information. And, one thing we did in the past, and we can see if that's possible, is in the Friday blasts, we sent out the proposed schedule of reminders And I can look to see if that's something we can do again. So you know that when that might be reaching the hands of your students or your alumni, would that be helpful?
That would be super helpful, I think, because, and I'm sure a lot of schools do this, but in addition to our bar pass classes that we do during the regular school year, we have a separate program that they take with their commercial bar class during the summer as they're leading up. And so we have a captive group that we're communicating with all the way up to the bar. And so it would be very helpful to know when they're getting that information so that we can remind them to look for that link.
Okay, and then the mechanics involve them signing up, and then the program is later sent out in several waves. And so when they sign up, they don't get the program at that moment. It's sent out closer to the bar prep time, or there's also a second wave as well to accommodate those who sign up later and also repeaters. Mary?
That what I was going to ask is when the students are getting the communication so that I can ping them that, and then I'll go, yeah, do this. So that was all, it would be really helpful to know that.
Okay, and the main thing I would say is that we're happy to send them out. Sometimes the dates need to bounce a little bit for various reasons, so be patient with us, but we can try to get those into your hands and the hands of the general e-blast list. Okay, Grace?
I think I know the answer, but I just want to confirm. It doesn't sound like there's a capacity issue. That is to say, as many bar applicants that want to participate in this can. Is that right?
Audrey, do you know if there is a maximum? At the very beginning, when this first happened, there was a maximum which they continued to increase, but I'm not sure whether there is currently.
I don't think so. I think, well, either that or it's worked out that the number of folks who have wanted to take advantage of it have not reached that capacity because that hasn't been the messaging.
And I think, yeah, and so I think that that's the case. And what I would say is that everyone should try to get the maximum benefits. So I would definitely encourage them.
Great, thank you.
Susan?
I've never had a student turned away, but I've had students tell me they waited too long and it closed. So I don't think there's so much as a capacity issue anymore as there is a missing the deadlines problem. One thing that I do, because you can't send the link, and that would be the easy thing, is that if you just go to State Bar website and search for strategies and stories, it'll pull you up a page that describes the program. And I throw that link at students constantly, just so that they remember the name of it and so that they can see what it is and see that it's part of the State Bar's official website. Again, to just sort of help with general messaging, that link works well enough, but it's not a link to sign up.
That's a great idea. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions or comments about recent developments? Okay. All right. So I'm checking for to see if our guest is here. I know he's coming directly from a meeting. So I'm going to just check in on his time. And then we can go forward with our agenda. We'll return to the Public Trust Liaison's office presentation in a moment.
Okay. I will move on then to the discussion.
Sure.
Natalie, or would you like us to pause a couple more moments?
I think we should move ahead.
Okay, great. So now we'll move over to our discussion portion, which is topics for the law school assembly and the upcoming registrars meetings. So our hope is, that we can get together, and we've already been having such great conversation around issues that we're all thinking about and considering, but just to get as much feedback from all of you as possible for suggestions for some of the topics that we'll cover at these upcoming meetings. So I just kind of want to open the floor to the group for thoughts about topics that we might pose for the assembly or the registrars meeting. If anyone has anything burning that they want to lead with, open it up.
I think it might be helpful too for those who may not have attended a meeting before, and for the purpose of the public, just to let people know that once a year we have a registrars meeting. We invite registrars from all of the California law schools. Others are welcome to attend. And then the law school assembly, we invite deans, and they're allowed to invite other folks from the school, including the folks here. The focus of the registrars meeting tends to be, not surprisingly, very records-based. We talk a lot about the portal. We've shown the portal. We've even done live editing of things in the portal before. The questions can be at a very strategic level or also at a very detailed level. So I really would say that while no question is too large, also no question is too small. And we are happy to include not only those topics where you don't know the answer, but the topics that are perennial questions from your students, either because they need a different way to be approached, or they're receiving the information at a time when they're busy, or for whatever reason that might be. The law school assembly is a place to talk about more strategic issues. And once we talk about some of the specifics, I can give some ideas of some things that were raised at CS bars. But in terms of thinking about questions for the registrars meeting, if you had to think about the top 1 or 2 or 3 questions that you get from either your administration or your students, are there certain things that come to mind? Mary Beth.
So I'm not sure if this is a registrars meeting or a law school assembly question, but I do, the associate dean's listserv has had a lot of buzz and a lot of conversation about accommodations. And we have just a huge increase in the number of accommodated students in law schools. I mean, I think every law school has just seen just a really high number of students coming in needing extra time accommodations or low distraction accommodations. And it's always a struggle, I think, to understand how the accommodations that they receive in law school translate into accommodations for the bar exam. And so I think a conversation about both any differences or what we should be advising students with respect to best practices for ensuring that they're setting themselves up in the best way to be able to get accommodations for the bar exam, but also just maybe a strategic conversation that within the bar about how to handle what will be probably a much larger number of applicants coming in seeking accommodations.
Mm-hmm. And you know, on that same topic, there's another facet of that where we could use your help too. For students who are in a situation where their condition is permanent and stationary, they can apply up to 2 years in advance, even before they are eligible to take a state bar exam, or they've even applied to do so. And that can give them some certainty as to what their accommodations might be. But each year, we often find that we get a very large number of applications right at the deadline. And if someone does apply far in advance and they find that there is a change in their status, they can apply for modification. And we'd love to know what we can do or what some of the barriers are to preventing an earlier application. So thanks for that suggestion, Mary Beth. And Devin?
Yeah, I will sort of second that suggestion, and sort of candidly for my students, the answer is they cannot think about bar accommodations until they actually are thinking about the bar exam. So I regularly talk to 2Ls about put your accommodate, and they're like, but I'm not taking the bar. So they have like a functional, like, it just doesn't make any logical sense to them that they would apply more than, right around the time they're registering for the exam. The other thing that I sort of on behalf of my registrar, I know that they would like to sort of have some more clarity on is exactly what the language is that shows up when a bar taker submits the application to take the exam around when transcripts are requested. Like I think we've talked about it a couple times, and I always try to sort of convey that information, but I know our registrar still feels like students don't quite understand that you all are going to get that information from us later. It's not like something that has to be dealt with in March when they sort of submit their application. And so having it be right in everyone's face, like this is what it looks like, maybe at that point in time collecting sort of feedback on if the language is actually appropriate and effective for what we intend the bar takers to know. it is mostly like an annoyance, I think, for a lot of the registrars, but there may be sort of a solution that is outside of my sort of ability to come up with, that they all can generate. The other, it just went out of my mind. It will come back to me, hopefully. But I had another one, but then I got all excited about the disability accommodation thing.
Well, this might be a good moment then. I see that our public trust liaison has arrived. I know that we just started rolling in our conversation, but would it be okay to put a pin in this conversation, knowing we'll come back in a few minutes after we hear from the public trust liaison?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Viviana, could you please recognize Enrique Zuniga? Welcome.
Good afternoon. Can y'all hear me? Thank you for waiting for me, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I would like to introduce myself. I'm the first ever public trust liaison for the State Bar of California, and that's something that I'm very proud of. And just to give you a little background about myself, I've been working with the bar for over a decade. I started answering phones. I became an investigator. And then I eventually passed the bar exam, became an attorney as a prosecutor for the Office of Chief Trial Counsel. And now here I am as an intermediary between the public and the State Bar. And right now my function focuses around two areas, which is Office of the Chief Trial Counsel, which deals with disciplinary actions. And I also focus on admissions, which I think is relevant for this meeting. Very quickly, I'm just going to go over the OCTC part. Part of my job is to educate the public about what the State Bar can do for both members of the public, attorneys, applicants, and also to educate the public on how to access these resources. One of the things about my office is that I'm independent and impartial. I'm not part of OCTC or admissions, which allows me to look at I guess you could say a new set of eyes to look at the inquiries that are submitted by the public. And finally, anybody that submits a public trust liaison inquiry would be dealt with in it's confidential. So really, if there's a concern about the content of the inquiry, it would be a confidential. I would look into things confidentially. Now, I might share information with members of the bar if we're trying to resolve a problem, but it is a confidential procedure. One of the things that I've been in this position for the last 4 months, and I have already received some inquiries from applicants, from people that are seeking admission to the bar. And what I like to say is, if you're an applicant and you're having an issue, or maybe you don't know the procedure and you'd like a little bit of guidance on what the State Bar can do for you, or maybe you'd like me to review one of the, well, that's more for OCTC, but if you'd like me to look into the complaint that you have filed, I can do that. 2 ways to access my help would be to go directly to the website, and you could go use our form, submit. It's a very brief form. Essentially what it does is it's tailored so that it prompts the person to let me know who they work with, what the problem is, how they've tried to resolve it, and what they hope to reach, how they hope to resolve it. And also for people that don't have access to the internet, or for whatever reason can't access the form, if you were to call our contact center, you can actually request that they assist you with filling out the form. And they will literally transcribe your concerns in a form that's delivered to me. That's what we call PTL escalation for people that don't have access to the internet, or maybe they can't access a form, etc. So that was in a nutshell what my office can do. I have been reached by members of different law schools. I've been reached for assistance by applicants, by non-traditional students that are having issues, and I've also been reached by members of the public that have questions from anything about how to file a complaint, How do I become an attorney? Is this something that you guys would look into? And all those questions, we can certainly look into them. One of my favorite things is I've had individuals that are struggling with maybe they submitted a form and they want to know the status, or they requested a partial refund and they want to know how to go about that, or maybe they're in the middle of a procedure and they would like to know what their options are, and they can reach out to me and we can discuss the procedures about what's their options and how to go about that. And again, we speak confidentially, and they determine what's the best move for them. At this moment, if it's okay with everybody, if anybody has any questions or would like to know more about the program, I'd be happy to answer.
I see a
Great.
question from Grace.
Hi, Enrique. Thank you for your presentation. I'm not sure whether this is a question that you can answer, but given that you do work in the sort of moral character sphere, the issue that I encounter with our in advising students on the moral character application is that if our law school application, for example, did not require them to report an arrest, right, that was dismissed, for example, that did not result in a conviction of a misdemeanor or a felony, right? So they did not report that on their law school application, right? But that maybe then whatever the question is on the moral character application, they did decide to report it, or out of an abundance of caution, they decided to report it on the moral character application. And then they submit the moral character application. Oftentimes, what happens, right, is that the student or grad is needing to respond to a request for further information. And the question that they get asked is, why didn't you report it on your law school application? And the answer very clearly is, because I didn't need to, because the question did not require me to do so. What I'm not sure I understand is why that inquiry happens when you all have access to the law school application. And so clearly they wouldn't have needed to report that information. And now yet they have to go through a longer process, right? When they haven't done anything wrong or inappropriate. And then it turns out my advice always to these students is just report it, because this is not going to be the reason you won't become a member of the bar, right? But because they didn't have to report it, I don't know why they need to report it. So again, I'm not sure if this is a question for you or somebody else, but I thought I'd ask.
No, that's fair. So one of the things that I talk to the public is I try to set limitations, right? I can't get into the merits of the case. I can't get into the nitty-gritty of what a valid moral character determination requires and what would disqualify you. But what I would do for a person like that is I would go over deadlines, timelines, and there are sections of the bar website that go into questions about moral character determination and what, like, not one thing will disqualify you, etc. So there's sections of the bar that can provide some insight. And believe it or not, a lot of applicants are so busy with their law school work, they're not familiar with the resources that are available. And for a person that would to ask me a specific question like that, I would try to point them to information that's already relevant to their question in particular, because unfortunately, I would not be able to get into the merits of their question. That's just a little bit beyond my reach. I have had a different situation where a person reached out to me and they were concerned about whether they would be able to pass moral character and fitness. And this is something that the person suggested, and I looked into it, and it turned out that it was something that we were able to work out. That person suggested that he had a colorful past, right? He said, what if I were to start my moral character application right now during my first year of law school? That way, if I don't, I can show rehabilitation, or maybe I can show, I'll know whether I'll be able to be an attorney or not. And save myself 2 years of law school? That is a question that personally I have never been, I didn't know the answer. So and frankly, maybe a lot of people don't know the answer. So I used my connections, I would talk to admissions. It turns out that there is no right time to file your moral character application. You could do it early. This person in particular thought it was a great option for them. So those type of things, Grace, where it's more about what's possible, what options do you have? Those are the type of things that I can help with. Unfortunately, once it gets to the merits as to why somebody was denied, or maybe what would I do differently, that I can't get into.
I'm not asking that, and I'm not asking about a particular student or situation. What I'm asking about is the process, and the process that often includes an investigator reaching out to an applicant that says, why did you not disclose this to us? And the answer is very clearly because they did not need to disclose it. I'm trying to understand why the State Bar engages in that process when clearly the question did not require them to disclose the information.
I see. I see what you're saying. To that extent, I would actually offer something that might be completely different. If anybody, members of the legal field or attorneys or members of the public, they want to express concerns or make recommendations or suggestions about a process that is currently, let's suppose like you, right? There's no attorney, there's no client, and I'm sorry, there's no student that you have in mind, but this is something that you've seen. That could be brought to my attention because part of my job here is to look at systematic issues that the bar faces in admissions and discipline. At the end of the year, I actually make a report to the Board of Trustees to identify gaps in procedures. So Grace, if you're interested, I would actually encourage you to make an inquiry, bring that up to me, and I would, that's something that I can look at, because one of the good features about my position is that I do encourage people that want to express concerns or make suggestions, and I take those very seriously, and they will end up in my report to the Board of Trustees. So I hope.
So I'm making that inquiry now, but I'm happy to follow up with you again
Please.
later.
Yes.
This is a real question.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if I can follow up separately if that would be helpful.
That would, yes. And that leads to what I can talk about now. The way I accept inquiries is through my landing page. There's a form to be submitted. It allows me to track. It allows me to capture your information. But things like that are also things that I would consider. Anybody that has a legitimate concern about policies or procedures, like the one you just mentioned, chances are that a student might not bring that to my attention. An applicant might not make that to my attention. And we can only fix what we know exists. So Grace, thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I think, was there another question?
Oh yeah, I have a question. Thank you so much for taking time, and definitely sort of second what Grace Hutton just said. That is a chronic issue for us at the law schools. And so I'm glad that it's going to be on your radar. The question I had was about sort of like summary data reporting. Are you going to be sort of putting out kind of at the end of each year or at the end of each cycle, like, hey, here is the kinds of things that I am hearing about, and here are the kinds of responses that the State Bar is taking because of the things that I am learning, something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be at the end of the year. That's going to be a report to the Board of Trustees. Now, I'm not exactly sure how much would be disclosed in terms of, because we have to keep things confidential, but there is going to be a report that identifies procedures, and I make recommendations. So yes, yes. And at the last Board of Trustees, I believe my office had been open for approximately 2 months, and they asked me for statistics. At that time, I think I had already received about 75 inquiries already, and most of them at that time dealt with the Office of Chief Child Counsel, and there was a few admissions. So they already asked for statistics. So yes, Devin, in answer to your question, at the end of the year, we are going to produce a document for the Board of Trustees, and it's the Board of Trustees is, I think it's open to the public.
Good. Yeah, and I would sort of encourage you and the sort of staff who staffs this committee and also CS bars to have you back every year when you put out that report to talk about it with this group, because I mean that we are supposed to be sort of the ones who sort of are the conduit to the law schools, and so it would be helpful for us to hear what people are telling you and also to sort of offer reaction to it.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd welcome that. And Devin, if you're familiar with an ombuds person, where at the end of the year they make, this is very similar to that.
Susan?
Oh, Susan, yes.
Thank you. I'll now third Grace's comments as a standard problem at all law schools and a big one. So thank you to Grace for pursuing that one. And I will also go to the landing page and pursue some other, what I consider to be very large procedural problems in the investigation of moral character, including one of the things we learned in the Blue Ribbon Commission when we looked at the medical schools is that law looks back a lot further and a lot harder than we even look at our physicians. And that when we are asking people who are 35 years old to explain a dorm room alcohol violation, there's something wrong with our investigation system, both in what it costs and what we are spending money investigating. And if there are arrests that did not result in any conviction, again, we're spending lots of time explaining some of these because they did result in college dorm room discipline. And that overlap makes the two questions very inconsistent. And I think Grace's problem is a more detailed example of what I consider to be a much broader issue that I think also overlaps with our issue today about fees and investigation money perhaps being spent in ways that is not productive nor necessary. So I will add my thoughts on your page again, but I just wanted to again say that to encourage Grace's comment that that's not unique.
No, yeah, and that's something that I wasn't aware of. So thank you, Susan and Grace, for bringing it up. And I want to add that, you know, I also went through the moral character and fitness process, and as me personally, I'm the first attorney in my family, and I didn't have anybody to turn to. What do we disclose, right? Like, what, I got a speeding ticket when I was 15. Do I have to say that? You know, those things are. I'm very aware of that fear, particularly for first generation law students, right? I remember, and I will share candidly, when I was in law school, there were people that considered not returning for the second semester when they realized that there was going to be a moral character and fitness issue because of something they did when they were 14, 15 years old. So yes, I'm very aware of that fear. I know how important this is. I know the effects of the moral character application on applicants, and I know the effects that it has on non-traditional students. Right. Imagine the moral character and fitness application for a 22-year-old versus for somebody that decided to change their career when they're 65 years old or 50 years old. I'm aware of that. One of the things that I particularly like doing, somebody that already had fears about the moral character and fitness process contacted me during their first semester of law school. That's the gentleman that I described earlier. And we were able to think outside the box and find something that kind of could potentially put his mind at ease or bring things to his attention early on. So one thing that I would say, Grace and Susan, is law students that have concerns or questions about the application process, they can also submit forms, and to the extent that I can go over the procedure with them, I will.
Thank you.
Natalie?
Natalie has a question.
But you can't hear it. Here we go. Okay. Do you have advice either here for law school administrators who have a question about that they want to submit, or also for students? What are the circumstances when they should be contacting you? So one circumstance that I'm hearing is if they're just not sure where to go, your office could be a place to start.
Yeah.
If they've hit a stuck point, your office could be a place to help figure out options. Should students be copying you when they send a question to admissions? Is it more for those sticky points? How can they best utilize the services that you can provide?
That's a great question. So when we initially started the office, I kind of opened every door. I said, send me an email, call me, etc. But as the office became more popular and we have a lot more inquiries, right now my preferred method is the form, because I'm able to track who submits. I'm able to identify people. Sometimes will send me emails from Proton emails where I can't respond. So my preferred method is the form. That's not to say that if you were to send me an email to my personal account or reach me by phone that I wouldn't take your call. I've done that as well. I was reached out by, I've talked to law school staff that have questions about particular students and they don't necessarily know who to contact. And I've been able to turn those people to the correct members of eligibility or etc. So to answer your question, my preferred method is the form. But I understand that if somebody's having an emergency or they don't know how to get the form, they can escalate a call from the contact center directly to me. My policy is, and to the extent that I can, is always going to be, if my phone rings and I'm available, I will always pick up. To the extent that I'm available, you can reach me by phone. You can ask that your call get escalated from the contact center. People have emailed me directly. And I'll provide my email before before I log off. But the form is the best. The form generates an alert. It comes to me. It's just a lot. I think it's more effective.
Okay, and that's great to know. And then it's also true, I understand that nothing has gone away as a result of this. So for example, a law school can always write to law school regulation at calbar.ca.gov
Yes.
if they're not sure where to go. A student
Yes.
can always submit a question to admissions or through their portal. And so those remain there. All of the resources everyone had remains. And additionally, we now have you through the Public Trust Liaison. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. And another thing that I will mention, partnering offices sometimes will suggest that people come to me. We've had members of the public go to a different office and ask a question from the wrong office. Maybe they ask a question to the wrong email box, and those sometimes get recommended for me to take on. So my offices does make referrals to me, and every avenue that you are aware of is still there. The only difference is if people are having a hard time communicating or they'd like to use me as an intermediary, I can facilitate that to the extent that's possible. I've had applicants reach out to me when they haven't heard a response, or they're stuck, or they want to know what's the next procedure. We looked at the court rules of procedure and I told them, hey, these are your options if you choose to do them. So yeah, every option is still available. The only difference is that if you would like to ask a question that's not apparent on the website, you have me now.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for that information. And again, hopefully we'll be able to have you back, as one of my colleagues suggested. That will be really wonderful. So thank you for that.
Yeah, so this is my first year. The office opened in January. So I anticipate that sometime in 2024 or in the first quarter, we're going to have that packet put together, and I'd be happy to share. And also for people like people in this field, in this group, that are not necessarily applicants, that are not necessarily a member of the public. However, you know the system, you would like to express a concern, make a recommendation, make a suggestion. Maybe you can help identify a gap in a procedure. Those are the type of things that I'm looking for. Those are the type of things that will make it to my report and get reported straight to the Board of Trustees.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay. So now I think we can return back over to the discussion we were having around potential topics for the Law School Assembly and Registrars meeting. I believe we have left off on some suggestions for registrar meeting topics.
Yeah.
Mhm. Sorry, Natalie, were you going to say something?
Oh, no, I was just I was expressing agreement.
Okay, great. Okay, Mary?
I'm not sure if this is a topic and for what meeting, but something Devin said made me think of this. When the students get into their applicant portal after they've applied to sit for the bar exam, I would like to recommend a revise of that page. I think whatever status it is very cryptic because we get a ton of inquiries from students on what does this mean? Is it right? Am I okay? Do I need to do something? Do I need to ask you for transcripts? So there's something, and because I don't have an applicant portal, I don't know what it looks like, but I spend a lot of energy, I imagine everyone else does, telling everybody it's okay and it's normal. But I'm thinking either the status descriptor could be more descriptive, or there could be some sort of like a little code box that says, hey, when you apply, this is what your status should say. And then when it goes to get your moral character and you're at the beginning review stages, this is what it's going to say. And once it's been assigned to an investigator, you're not in trouble. That's a normal process. Like something a little more descriptive like that, I think would cut down on one, a lot of questions, and two, a lot of anxiety. So that's my suggestion. And I don't know if we need to bring it to a meeting or something, but Devin made me think of it.
Okay. Do you think that folks generally would like to hear directly from Enrique, as you did in the larger group? Yeah. Because that's something we could do too.
Grace?
I will just add on to the other folks that talked about wanting to have a more in-depth conversation about disability-related accommodations for the bar. And in particular, I will just say that we have construed the ADA broadly, as I think that we are supposed to, which is to say that who we believe has a disability as a law student has become or is a broad group of folks. And as a result, then we provide them with the accommodations that we believe we are required to provide to them. And what I'm not understanding as I hear about the denials that our students get, right, is how or why the state bar is construing the ADA what sounds like drastically different than the way that we do. So I think just some more understanding about what the state bar's process is in reviewing the accommodation, the requests, right? I mean, just at the level of, does the applicant have a disability, right? And then how are they afforded the accommodations, I think would really be helpful for the law schools as we try to advise our students on these issues.
Thank you, Grace. And this is kind of one of the topics I had kind of thought about, and I wasn't quite sure if it would be best suited for the registrars meeting or the larger law school assembly, but just kind of concerning the testing accommodations, as well as the proposal that I believe was out for public comment concerning the state bar and its approval of disability related accommodations requests, and kind of what that proposal entailed in terms of a lot of law schools kind of seeking more transparency concerning the review of the or actually the reviewer, who was the reviewing body, what things were considered and such. And so I know that was working its way through the process, and that was one of the items that I was also kind of just interested in getting an update about. Mary Beth?
I was just going to add that I do think the the new fee proposal is also something that should be definitely discussed with the larger group. I think everybody is going to get questions about it, and so the more you can help to prepare the law schools for those questions, the better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Devin?
Sort of following along on the accommodations train, I realized now the thing that I was like, my brain forgot earlier, which was one of the things that would be very helpful, I think, particularly for, you know, I do some of that advising, but a lot of it are folks who are in our sort of student life functions and things like that, is to kind of present some, like in the lawyer in me says, present them as hypos, like, hey, student presents this way, here is how the bar would sort of review this accommodation. So you can talk in sort of some generalities, but also give a lot more concrete guidance, because often we sort of will work from what we know on the bar's website, but that is not always how it plays out when they're when sort of the moral character staffer sort of reviews them. At least that's not how it's communicated to the student. So something like that like helps us get into the moral character of people, or not more, I mean the accommodations people's heads a little bit more would be really helpful. The other thing is there was a couple of meetings earlier in the year about sort of the study process related to test driving ideas for the new bar exam, which, you know, I was really excited when you all said, oh, we can't make this work at the end of the semester because the folks in my building were going to have a heart attack when I asked that of them. But sort of talking about that a little bit at those meetings, because they're going to be the folks who really have to help on the law school end of it, kind of wherever we're at with that process, so that I'm not the only one asking. That essentially you all can ask them with me, and it will be more likely that my dean of students won't throw darts at my head when I ask for classroom space for you guys. So.
Chris?
Yeah, this is just a follow up on Devin's hypothetical example for accommodations. I love that idea. We will sometimes have students that have not had the right type of assessment done, and so they're surprised in their 3L year when they do apply for accommodations. They're told they need more documentation, or they might need to get more expensive evaluations done. So just some hypotheticals, taking that particular instance where maybe they haven't had anything done in a while would be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Susan?
And perhaps I'll add this to my long list of procedural things to chat with the new poor public liaison, who is going to be my new friend. We're going to have a chat about moral character, but the only other thing I would add to it is I think that the form letters need revision. Their tone scares the hell out of people. It scares me, and I see hundreds of them all the time, and I should be immune to the tone by now, but it says your application's been suspended. It says you've been assigned to an investigator. It sounds like your last 3 or 4 years of law school was a journey for fun. And I think if we could work on some of these procedures, both in the accommodations and in the moral character arena, we need better communication that's clearer and that appreciates that while students, I will concede, can be overly sensitive, some of these letters are so old that I think they don't meet today's students where they are.
Thank you, Susan. I really appreciate that comment. I've actually been doing the same kind of looking at our form letters and stuff at the law school as well. So many of them, right? They just kind of need refreshing. One of the other items I kind of wanted to just see if there was interest in, certainly it's of interest to me, and it's been a topic at our law school currently, is just the AI technology, and just kind of where that might be in some type of interplay with the state bar. Is there an interest amongst the council to hear on that topic? Yeah, I'm seeing head nods.
And it could be from a lot of different angles. It could be from point of view of test security, point of view of plagiarism, role of the regulator. There really could be a lot of aspects in that, just information sharing about what your policies are at your schools, or if you even have a policy yet. We recently received a copy of an exam policy at a school, and it was the first AI exam policy that we had seen so far. Just more for informational purposes.
Yeah, we had considered at our law school, the committee that I chair, that exact topic. And interestingly, our faculty felt at the time that they just really didn't know enough about it to issue a policy, and that perhaps our general plagiarism and academic dishonesty would capture work that was not original and that was not cited. But certainly something we've been discussing a lot about our law school as we're just trying to understand it, and also how we might be incorporating as early as at orientation, like what role of any AI should have for students, how, if at all, they should be using it, what is permissible use, what are considerations they need to have around the use of it. So we're grappling with those things ourselves as we're thinking about the entering class.
And this might be a good time to mention that some of the topics that CS Bars talked about when they were posed with these same questions were looking at best practices in online education, or just overall changes in student expectation and student learning since the pandemic, and the role of AI. So those were things that they surfaced. And so you might want to think about all of those or others that you might add, and what you think might be one or more good topics for a deep dive at Law School Assembly.
Mary?
Just to share, we at our school just changed our honor code specifically to address AI at our last faculty meeting 2 days ago, and we voted that through. So I think everyone's grappling with it in one way or another. So I think it's going to be really timely, and I think a lot of folks are going to percolate on it over the summer. And so that by the time of the Law School Assembly, I think it'll be a good time to have that discussion.
Chair Dueñas, would it be okay if I asked for just a little show of hands vote? If you had a choice for a focus topic between changes in education since the pandemic, best practices online, and AI technology, if those were your three, could you use the raise hand function to tell me what your top choice would be? So how many would choose changes in learning since the pandemic? See, 2. How many would choose best practices in online technology, online learning? See, 1. And how many, I got you, Grace. And then how many would choose AI related issues? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, okay. Thank you, that really helps. Okay, wonderful. We're going to be sending out a follow-up. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris, did you have another comment? We're going to be sending out a follow-up, as we normally do, in newsletters and maybe through other means from schools. We would encourage you to ask your colleagues to share this type of detailed information with us too. It helps us to make the most relevant meeting for you, but also it helps us to get the most current feedback so that we target our efforts in the right way. And so we talked about, we're looking to control and cut costs here, but part of that is putting the effort toward where you need it most. And this is one of the ways that we learn that. So this type of really thoughtful feedback, I can't tell you how helpful. So I greatly appreciate it. And we did a little bit earlier this year. We'll check in with you the next time we meet. So this will give us more opportunity to follow up on your suggestion and possibly bring more solutions to the program as well. Chair Dueñas, any other comments or thoughts on this topic?
No, unless my colleagues have anything further. We're done there. I believe this is the last agenda item. Am I correct, Natalie?
This very last one is relating to
one more.
relating to LLM programs. So I wanted to put out a call for help and advice to this group based on a request that we received from the Committee of Bar Examiners. Every so often, they like to receive updates on trends in the legal education learning space, and they asked about the role of LLM programs. So there was a time when LLM programs were primarily that 1 year when you've been educated outside the US, and those programs continue and are important and are evolving. But in addition, there are lots of other types of LLMs and lots of other purposes. And the committee was interested to learn about the role of those programs in schools, the proportion of time spent on a JD program versus an LLM. Just they really were open to the sorts of information that we should bring them about that so they could understand the big changes that have happened in this area. And we've seen an explosion in questions about LLMs since the pandemic, maybe partially because there has been such an increase not only in online learning, but in acceptance of online learning degrees. And I know that some of your schools have very robust programs in that area. And if we were going to talk to a group that hasn't had this type of discussion in a while, what are some of the sorts of questions that we might, or sorts of information we might want to share with them? So for example, the schools in California that are offering it, the enrollment, the breadth of subject matter covered, but are there sorts of questions that we may not know to ask that you think would be helpful for them to know? And they're looking not only in terms of thinking about the bar exam and the things that are top of mind for you, but also in their role as regulators of Cal accredited schools and also unaccredited schools. So if you were talking to a regional accreditor or to the ABA about your graduate programs, what would you want those bodies to know?
Devin?
At Santa Clara, we have sort of kind of two discrete kinds of LLM program because we're sort of a deeply IP high-tech focused school. We have a very much like an LLM that focuses on that, and it attracts lots of domestic lawyers as well as international lawyers. But we have sort of the traditional also sort of program that attracts lots of folks from abroad. It's gotten much smaller in recent years, largely, I think, due to both the pandemic and the cost of it. But there's still that group that comes thinking it is a bar prep program for them to seek bar admission here. And I think that we, as the bar person in the building, we don't think about our LLM that way, but I would, as you all are gathering information, it would be interesting to sort of see like how many schools really sort of treat at least a portion of their LLM as a vehicle for people to get ready for the California bar exam, and how that information, bar admission information, is communicated through the LLM program to those students. Like our students are deeply befuddled by everything that it says related to bar admission rules. And, candidly, we can't make sense of most of the rules ourselves. And so, if that is sort of something that LLM programs are supposed to be doing, like some more clarity from the bar would be great, but also sort of more of a community among all the schools around sort of how we can support each other in that work too.
Okay. And do you think your schools would be interested in appearing before the committee, for example, possibly on a panel, just to bring the folks that are close to your grad programs to talk a little bit about what they're doing? I know you can't commit someone who's not here, but Susan.
I'm friendly with our LLM director, so I'll just commit for Aaron and say, yes, he should and would like to come. I have no idea whether he can, but what I can tell you is that everything you just said, I don't even know how to answer. So as much as I would like to give you information about our, and we too, like Devin has described, have more than one LLM. We have a tax LLM, we have subject matter LLMs, we have foreign trained attorney LLMs. But you need my expert, you don't need me. And I think this may be, it's reminiscent to me of years ago when, as a bar group, we created a list of ASP folks because we couldn't find all of them. I think we need to make a list of LLM folks and get that to your regulator folks, if that's who they need.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. Mary Beth.
Right. So like Susan, I will say, I know our LLM person very well, who is our, and I will commit her too. But ours is the Dean of Graduate Online and International Programs. And I think that that is important because all of those things are really connected at our school. So we have mainly our LLM program is for foreign lawyers, and increasingly, I would say they are interested in taking the bar, and that has not always been true. And to the point that in our post law school pre-bar program, we're creating a separate section for the LLM students, like where we might have had, one or two. We now have enough to make their own like little study group section. So there's that. Then the other question is, well, we don't have any subject specific LLMs. We do have other graduate programs. So I don't know whether there's an interest in talking about that, but the non-JD programs, the non, we have a Master of Science in Law program, which is for, and that may be something that people need to be aware of, the growth in those programs. And if California accredited schools are contemplating, California bar accredited schools are contemplating increasing the number of those programs where you don't need a foreign law degree, you don't need any law degree. It's just a master's program. We have that one, and we have also a Master of Public Policy and a Master of Public Administration that sit within our law school. And so those still remain fairly small programs. They're not the bulk of our program at all by any stretch, but I think that has been another area in which law schools have really been expanding law adjacent programs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's really helpful. Mary.
I'm not sure if this is helpful, but last year I was asked to present at a LLM at their conference, and it was about bar preparation for LLM, which I know a lot about bar preparation, but so I learned a lot about LLMs and those programmings. And just to share with you, one of the things I do know is California is a bit of an outlier in allowing LLM students to sit for the bar. California and New York are the states that mostly allow that. There's a few others. So that is something I think that should shade the conversation about what we're doing and why we're doing it. The bigger bar examiners. And I agree. I think there is more of an interest, and maybe it's not more, but certainly a lot of students in those LLM programs are doing that to take a bar exam. And since we are one of the few states that offer that opportunity, it's probably worth spending a little energy figuring out what we're, like kind of overarching what that goal is with that. Just kind of random thoughts, I understand, but I just wanted to share that with you because I did learn a bit about it when I did that presentation.
Thank you. I apologize. I'm taking some notes while we talk. Well, thanks. This is definitely a very good start for us, and I've definitely learned some new things. Are there any other comments or questions on this item? I'll turn it back to you, Chair Dueñas.
Thank you. Well, this was our last item on the agenda. So that concludes our meeting for today. Thank you everyone for the wonderful discussion. Thank you for allowing me to chair in my first meeting here with all of you. And I'm very much looking forward to continued discussion. Grace?
I just want to say a quick goodbye and appreciation to be able to serve on this committee. It's been a privilege. And since I've been on it for the last year and a half or so, Natalie and Audrey, you have always been in these meetings, and I've just appreciated all of the work that you've done and the support that you've given to this committee. And just wanted to acknowledge you both and how grateful I've been to be able to serve on this committee.
Oh, we appreciate you too. Thank you.
Thank you for your engagement, Grace.
And good luck.
Thank you, Grace. Yeah, thank you. And good luck on your new adventure. So very much thank you, everyone. Well, a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks, everyone.